I received this Welch Perpetual Calendar clock the other day. It has a calendar mechanism invented by Benjamin Bennett Lewis incorporated into it. B.B. Lewis sold his date mechanisms to various clock companies. Nice looking clock here. The case is made from rosewood. Customer says the calendar function does not work and it keeps stopping. Their local clockmaker has not been able to fix it. The customer doesn't want the time movement cleaned or rebuilt, just the calendar section to be set up correctly. There's a locking latch for both doors. Top latch is this wooden twist lever. It locks into this brass locking tab attached to the bezel. The lower date and month dial door is locked using the winding key. The label says the clock was made by Welch, Spring and Company. This company was formed to produce a more expensive line of clocks between 1868 and 1884. The label is in fair condition for its age, but it's disbonding from the back and failing in some areas. Near the top of the label, it advertises steel pivoted rolling pinions. These are lantern pinions that have rolling trundles designed for less friction on the gear teeth. The latch is loose and should be tight on these, or it will interfere with the correct functioning of the bottom date mechanism. The dust cover has the instructions for the B.B. Lewis calendar mechanism of the clock. On the bottom it states, never open the door between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. It's between these hours the bottom calendar ratchet mechanism is engaged with the control arm. These exposed screws through the black paper indicate someone has removed this panel sometime in the past. The black paper is disbonding. The adhesive has dried up. The brass latch looks nice and snug. This is the ratchet lever that operates the date mechanism. Right now it's jammed against the round metal dust cover. It'll never work like this. The word July is clocked at 7 o'clock. It should be clocked at 6 o'clock. And January should be clocked at 12 o'clock. The dial is mislocated. That's why this ratchet trigger lever is jammed to the side. The whole mechanism is rotated about 20 degrees. The brass control arm that operates the date lever goes through this wooden slot. Looks like some new wood here, a shim of some sort. The pendulum looks like a standard OG pendulum from that time period. The brass control arm that operates the lower calendar dial. A loose star gear that operates the day of the week on the upper dial. And fancy pierced blued hands. This end goes to the upper dial, and this slot goes on the bottom to operate the calendar. It's gold gilt and has some bends and a cutout slot on the side of it. Get this dial off and see what I have to work with. This is the star gear that operates the day of the week hand. The star has 7 points, 1 for each day of the week. It seems to rotate freely. As I rotate the star, you can see the hand move. The dial has original paint and has some paint missing in areas. Someone has soldered an extension on the cam mechanism. Extended the original about a ½ inch longer to reach the star gear. Something has been modified for some reason here. Maybe a different dial or movement was installed, but definitely a mismatch here. And this connecting wire looks out of place. I've always seen a threaded rod that fastens to the cam lever solid instead of a connecting wire like this. Customer says it keeps jamming, and his local clock expert has had it several times and has never been able to completely fix it. The brass pinion has been punched to tighten it on the center wheel shaft. The slotted hole in the control arm fits up to the calendar ratchet lever. To troubleshoot this and get the calendar mechanism set up correctly, I'll start with the calendar mechanism and work backwards. Lots of dust and a bug skeleton here. The ratchet lever fits into this brass control arm slot. When the cam rotates, it lifts the brass control arm up, and the bottom of the slot lifts the calendar ratchet lever, advancing the date hand. Every 24 hours, the cycle advances the date hand 1 day at midnight. The date mechanism was patented by B.B. Lewis in the 1800s. These 4 screws need to be removed to tighten the calendar dial. They hold the wood bezel for the calendar dial. Oh, the whole calendar dial pan rotates. It shouldn't rotate at all. The ratchet mechanism front plate is mounted solid to the front dial pan. I'll need to get the dial clocked correctly and locked in place. Now that the dial is temporarily clocked correctly, now that the ratchet lever is located correctly in relationship to the hole in the back dust cover, it works great with no binding. The pendulum where it's attached here looks modified. Maybe a different wooden pendulum rod was installed at one time. I'll visit this later if it gives any issues. The customer only wants the calendar part of the clock to be fixed. And here someone has penciled in numbers. Not sure why. Maybe the clock case was taken apart at one time, and these numbers helped with reassembly. And here a square nail. The head matches this head. Oh, it came out from here. Here on the back, it looks like a glue line, almost like there may have been something glued here at one time. Makes me wonder if something here has been modified. Since I can't see where the ratchet arm is when the door is closed, I'll transpose the arm location onto this piece of mylar. Then I can determine the correct location of the slot in the brass control arm. I'll use a piece of putty and stick it to the ratchet lever. Close the door and the putty will stick to the mylar. Great, there it is. This is the ratchet arm location in its resting position. Mark it with a felt pen. Now to check the control arm slot location. While moving the brass control arm from right to left, the blue dot should contact the brass on both sides of the slot. If it doesn't contact the brass, this will cause friction and stop the movement. I'll need to move up and find out what's causing the brass control arm not to have enough movement. An adjustment will need to be made someplace to increase the freedom of the brass arm. This white piece of wood shim here, it's not allowing full side movement of the brass connecting arm. It's causing the brass control arm to bind in some positions. It doesn't have any stain on it. Looks like it was recently added. To get the full upward movement needed of the brass control arm, I need to get the full movement of the calendar ratchet lever and transpose it to the mylar. Very small amount of movement needed to operate the calendar dial. Now to remove the shim someone added. This should free up the brass connecting arm. Looks like the tip of a bamboo barbecue skewer. It's been glued in using modern yellow wood glue. Good, got it off. This could have been the whole problem. I can see where it was rubbing more on this side, probably from that bamboo shim someone added. Here's a second shim. This one doesn't look like it was made from a bamboo skewer, like the other one. The glue holding this shim is old. It's checked and cracked. Looks like a much older shim here. I'll leave this shim in place and see how it works. Not sure this movement is original to the case with the modifications I'm finding. With the bamboo shim removed and the original block of wood re-glued in place, the cutout slot in the brass control arm is located correctly in relationship to the calendar lever now. It shouldn't jam down here anymore. Now to move up to the next connecting point. I don't like this connecting wire being used in this movement. It doesn't give the best control to the parts it's connected to, and it's not real easy to make adjustments with. I much prefer the threaded rods I usually see in these movements. Connected to the cam. Now to cycle the movement by hand and adjust the slot in the rod to the bottom calendar lever as needed. Upward motion looks fairly good. The slot in the brass rod is at the right location to have moved the lower calendar dial one day. It's up fully and the rivet on the cam is at its highest point. Looking good so far. I'll close the door and cycle it through a 24-hour cycle. It should work the calendar dial hand now without jamming. The cam is moving to the upper position, so the hand should be moving to the next day. Nice. Cycle it one more time. As the cam pulls the brass control arm up, the calendar date hand moves to the next date. Good. This portion operates as it was designed by B.B. Lewis. Someone has soldered a piece of brass on this cam lever to extend its length to reach the star gear. Definitely something is not an original setup here. This length of wire determines the upward movement of the brass control arm for the bottom calendar ratchet arm. On these Welch movements, I have always seen a threaded rod used, so it can be micro-adjusted using the threads. First time I've seen a wire like this used. Only way to adjust the length on this one is to bend it slightly at the loop. Now to get the lower dial clocked correctly. For the lower calendar dial to be clocked correctly, the thread needs to intersect the 1 and 17 through the middle. Looks like it needs to rotate slightly in this direction to correct. I'll need to remove the calendar assembly to correct it, then secure it to keep it from spinning. This wood bracket holding the dial pan has fallen loose. The others are slightly loose. This is allowing the dial pan to rotate and spin independent of the bezel when the brass control rod operates the calendar ratchet lever. These are 2 of the 4 fastener holes on the bezel. And this is one of 2 steel indexing pins. The other 2 mounting screw holes. Oh, this second indexing pin is bent, almost at a 90-degree angle. It took some excess force to do this. Sign of a butcher. Not sure why someone would do this. Maybe they attempted to rotate the calendar dial pan by twisting the wood bezel. The dial pan is secured by using square finish nails. Nice seeing these square nails on these old pieces. With the calendar dial removed, we can see what the wood looked like when it was new. Here you can see years of aged unknown finishes, all rough and dull, and it has completely covered the original wood-grained finish. This old finish is called patina. Some people love the look. A little wipe with a damp cloth to remove the dirt, and you can see the original finish against the old yellowed finish. Years of black dirt here. A beautiful wood grain, the way it was meant to look 150 years ago. The dark wood grain is actually painted on, then top-coated with a thin layer of lacquer. If the old finish was stripped, the painted-on wood grain would surely be removed. Straighten the bent index pin. Much better. Install these wooden bezel clips. Nice square finish, Brad. I'll move it over slightly from the old hole to get a fresh bite in the wooden bezel. Paper to protect the wood. I'll use pliers and press these brads into the wood bezel to eliminate the possibility of breaking the glass. The 4 wooden bezel clips are holding the dial pan nice and tight. The dial's clocked correctly and centered with the index pins. The day of the week hand is centered nicely on each number now. Perfect. It's right in the center of the number 1. Cycle it 1 month to check the month hand. Nice. The hand is centered on the month. It's set up and ready to go now. Looks great. Time to look at the star gear adjustment. The star gear on the back of the bezel is connected directly to the hand that indicates the day of the week for the upper dial. It's operated by the cam lever. The original cam lever isn't long enough to reach this star gear. So either the star gear is not original, or the cam lever is not original. Someone in the past attempted to lengthen the cam lever by soldering an extension on the cam lever, but it wasn't long enough, so I replaced it with a larger extension. I need to finish trim the new extension so that it meshes with the star gear. When the dial's mounted, there's no way to visually see the two meshing together, so I'm going to transfer its location to this piece of mylar to make it easy to see if there's any issues with the cam lever meshing with it. Here's the larger brass extension I added to the cam gear arm. With this mylar, I'll be able to final trim the extension and get it right the first time. As the cam gear pulls the brass control arm up to activate the date hand on the lower dial, it also turns the star wheel to advance the day hand on the upper dial. The brass extension is moving into the small circle of the star gear. If it's too long, it'll jam. If it's too short, the day hand won't locate the hand correctly. Needs just a small amount removed from the top of the extension. all back together, and the calendar function is working great.